Welcome and thank you all for joining. Oh, now you can really hear me. There we go. Just kicked in. With us virtually, we have Vice Chair Chris Brillinger and Board Member Lisa Kostakis. Thank goodness you're here, Member Kostakis, or we'd be very lopsided, to say the least. So thank you for attending. So let's start the meeting off in a good way by providing our land acknowledgement. The Toronto Police Service Board acknowledges that the City of Toronto exists on traditional and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and as affirmed through Treaty Number 13 of 1805. It's commonly known as the Toronto Purchase, and the Anishinaabe of the Williams Treaty of 1923. These treaties cover much of what is now the Greater Toronto Area, which covers the same lands where the Toronto Police Service and the Toronto Police Service Board operate today. In addition to the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, this land has also been the traditional and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, such as the Chippewas, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Today, this land is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. And people who live, grow, and raise future generations here are continuing to have deep connections to the land that stretch back thousands of years. As a board of service operating on treaty land, we must act within the spirit and intent of those agreements, ensuring that our work reflects the values of respect, reciprocity, and reconciliation that they represent. So, having made those remarks, I will ask if there are any declarations of interest under the Declaration of Interest Act, Code of Conduct for members of Police Service Board. Seeing none, welcome, Member Ann Morgan is with us as well. Seeing no declarations, I'm going to proceed with the meeting, and I'm now going to turn it over to the board's interim director, Sandy Murray, so she can go through the meeting's logistics. Director Murray.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to everyone who has joined us in person, as well as those who have called into this meeting. Please note that this meeting is also being live streamed on the Toronto Police YouTube account and will be available there at the conclusion of this meeting. Joining us in person, we have Chair Councillor Shelley Carroll and Board Member Lisa Kostakis. Joining us virtually, we have Vice Chair Chris Brillinger. We also have members of our board office staff, Chief Demkew, the Services Command Team, members of the service, and of course, members of the public. We have individuals who have registered to make deputations both in person as well as virtually on our agenda items. As per our regular meeting process, deputations will be heard prior to the item being discussed and voted on by committee members. When it comes time to do a deputation, those who have registered will be called upon and or brought into the meeting. As always, deputants will speak, followed by an opportunity for committee members to ask them questions. I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. As the director mentioned, we have one item. All of the budgets are contained under item number 1. So what we're going to suggest is we have the presentations on the budgets first. We've already got staff lined up to do that so that it can inform people making deputations, and then we'll proceed to the deputations in public. Chief Demkew, shall you kick us off?
I will. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by thanking the finance team and everyone who worked on the budget this year, including our analytics and innovation team. As we know, building a budget is no small task. It requires diligence and accountability, and this team really delivered. So I want to say thank you to them and let them know how grateful we are for all their hard work. I also want to thank you, the board, and the City of Toronto staff. This past couple of years, we've seen a true partnership evolve in this process, and that's because we all share the same priority: the safety of residents and visitors to Toronto, whether it's in their home, workplace, on city streets, or on our transit system. This year's budget is about continuing to invest in progress, with our multi-year hiring plan at the center of this commitment. As agreed when the multi-year hiring plan was approved, we still plan to hire 4 classes of 90 police officers in 2026. That is reflected in our budget ask this year, and we also take into account increases related to collective bargaining agreements and increasing costs of employee benefits. As you know, we've been able to reduce call response times for priority 1 calls, and these are the most dangerous calls that our members go to. There is still more work to be done, and your continued commitment, members of the board, to the multi-year hiring plan, coupled with strategic, data-driven deployment and resourcing, will help to improve on this important service metric. Also this past year, most community safety indicators are down compared to 2024, including, remarkably, homicides are down by over 50%, and shootings, car thefts, and break-and-enters. With all that being said, it is important to note that to see the full impact of our multi-year hiring plan, it will take time because we need to continue to hire a large number of officers after years of austerity, and it takes time to recruit, train, and to get them on the road. This all points to real progress, and now is the time to continue to build on this momentum. Policing in Toronto is extremely complex. It's a growing city of 3.2 million people. We continue to face the impacts of geopolitical events and related protests and demonstrations. Community safety indicators are going in the right direction this year, but many indicators have been increasing over the past decade. We continue to address gang violence, the proliferation of crime guns, drugs that are increasingly potent, youth violence. We continue to plan for major events such as FIFA. This budget allows the service to continue its commitment on every pillar of our community safety and well-being roadmap while we look forward to the board's strategic plan in the coming year. Maintaining and investing in progress means having the capacity for long-term planning while still responding to everyday challenges that come with policing a city as dynamic as ours. And this is how we will continue to make Toronto the safest place to be. Thank you, and I'll turn it over now to Mr. McKeag.
Thank you, Chief, and good evening, Chair and everyone. We will take this group through a presentation about the 2026 budget request. If we could have the presentation.
There we go.
Perfect, thank you. Mic's on. Chair, before starting it, I'd like to echo the Chief's comments. Producing an effective and accountable budget for Toronto Police is no small undertaking given the complexity of financial planning for an organization of our size and our scope. We will exit 2025 with 8,236 members and a budget of $1.34 billion supporting operations across 6 service areas: 911 response and patrol, investigations and victim support, crime prevention, events and protests, traffic and parking enforcement, and courts and prisoner management. And of course, these are all 24/7 operations, which brings its own complexity when it comes to financial planning. The 2026 budget we are requesting today meets that goal of being effective and accountable, allocating resources with precision, and ultimately supporting a safer Toronto. So I'll add my thank you to both the finance team and leaders across the entire organization for this work. Tonight we'll walk through the elements of the Toronto Police Service's 2026 budget requests, which are the strategic direction, our service delivery context, and then the 2026 operating, capital, and parking budget requests. Next slide, please. There were 6 key principles underlying this budget build, with touch points to both strategy and operational outcomes that you will hear as we go through the evening. They are ongoing commitment to adequate and effective policing, ongoing commitment to Toronto Police Service goals, sustain the multi-year hiring plan, incorporate the impacts of collective bargaining agreements, identify necessary resources to effect desired change, and identify areas of opportunity or areas of risk to sustainable services. Next slide. So any good financial plan is built to support the mission and strategy of the organization. So I'd like to take just a few minutes to remind ourselves for this discussion tonight of our service goals and the evolving operational roadmap. The service goals we're very familiar with. The Chief established 3 goals around improving trust in and within the service, accelerating police reform and professionalization, and supporting safer communities. As you will hear this evening, these goals are all realizing significant dividends. There are improvements in 911 call times and P1 response times. Community safety indicators are improving almost across the board. And there are ongoing investments in our community, such as neighborhood community officers with the expansion of 4 neighborhoods and TTC. And yet, there remains much to do and to keep Toronto the best and safest place to be. So, to refresh our memories a little bit further, the CSPA, the CSPA outlines our obligations to provide specific services and to provide overall adequate and effective policing. And as we continue to rebuild our workforce and respond to the needs of the community, our renewed operational roadmap builds on our successes and will guide our members, ensuring our efforts are co-designed, co-developed, and co-delivered in meaningful ways with the communities that we serve. Next slide, please. The 6 pillars of this roadmap are to partner better, to address root causes with the right services responding to the right issues, such as partnering with TTCS, to hyperlocalize, where we know and have relationships in the communities we serve and respond more effectively to prevent crime. The NCO program and its continued expansion into more communities is a great example of this. To use more data, deliberately enhancing collection and integration of actionable intelligence, including supporting response in real time, such as automated license plate reader capabilities. To be precise and focused, discerning new crime trends and focusing on those doing the most harm, such as Project Yankee and the tow truck investigations. To standardize investigations, improving processes enabling whole-of-service approaches to improving outcomes, such as auto thefts and carjackings. And lastly, but in many ways just as important, a healthy TPS, continuing investment in our officer and civilian professionals' well-being. As the saying goes, happy staff equal happy customers, so too with the service. Better physical and mental health equal better outcomes in our community. I'll now turn it over to the team here with us this evening to walk through the specifics of our service delivery outcomes and the 2026 operating budget request. So at this time, over to you, Director Williams.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm going to highlight a few of the things which, as many of us know, make Toronto unique, and from our perspective, make Toronto a complex and evolving place to deliver policing services. The growing and very large population in the city drives the demand for policing services, from 911 calls to the specialized skill sets required for investigations into violent activities such as gun violence, human trafficking, and auto theft, which we see growing throughout the city. We've also seen, as many of us know, the global impacts which are playing a role across our city on a daily basis, and our need to be able to respond to those in a timely and agile basis continues to grow, and we're delivering services extensively in this space. And so many of those aspects of uniqueness, which we see Toronto as glowing and a great place to be, drive, as we know, a lot of those services that we deliver here. Next slide. Many of those are reflected in our calls for service demand. The population's been growing over the past few decades, and along with that, we'd seen in many recent years our response times increasing. At the same time, we saw a commensurate decrease in some of our frontline staffing and overall staffing levels. And in a few of the more recent years, starting in 2023, we began to shift our deployment of resources, our focus on the management efforts around response time to calls for service, and these have driven a lot of the improvements that we've been highlighting over the past months and few years as well. Next slide. Some of those key areas, which Mr. McKeag had mentioned earlier, from our service delivery context become very important from our perspective in terms of response time, in terms of investigations and victim support, crime prevention, events and protests, traffic and parking enforcement, and courts and prisoner management. Some areas that we would like to highlight in that regard include our continued focus on priority calls, and along with that, our shared partnership in working with agencies such as TCCS, TCHC, Toronto Transit Commission as well, in being able to share the service delivery model. To that end, we've seen an increase in a lot of our referrals to those partner agencies and allowing us to shift our focus increasingly to those highest priority events. From an investigations and victim support perspective, we've continued to invest in specialized services. From an investigation perspective, we drive a lot of our resources in that regard, and as the chief mentioned earlier, we are mindful of those longer-term trends that are growing in a lot of those high-violent activities which are impacting our communities. In terms of crime prevention, increased investments in neighborhood and community officers and the activities that they're delivering. Again, increased referrals, partnering with communities across the city, and focusing on gang exit wherever we can. Our events and protests are increasing, and the demonstrations that we have showing up across the city are an increased demand for the services we're delivering. As we know, we've delivered congestion plans and enforcement in a number of areas across the city to address those road safety activities as well as to improve traffic-related flows. And from a courts and prisoner management perspective, being able to bring people to and from courts safely, to be able to provide security and address some of the disruptions that happen in courts in a timely and safe manner increases as we continue to move forward. Next slide. A few of those areas where we've been bringing increased data visibility into those activities through our analytics, through our transparent reporting, are highlighted here, and they're ones which we've referred to extensively in the past. Calls for service. We've received 1.4 million calls this year, and that's down a little bit compared with last year, driven largely by those partnerships and referral activities that we're undertaking. Some of that being online reporting, some of that being diversions to partners such as TCCS, as mentioned before. And that is a strategic activity that we continue to invest in and continue to evolve over time as well. Investigations and victim support. We have seen improvements this year compared with last year in all but one of our community safety indicators. I'll highlight more of that shortly. And as the chief noted again, we are very mindful of those longer-term trends as well, which we do see increases in over time. We've increased the volume of arrests this year, and that's continuing a longer-term trend as well, where we're focusing on those highest risk offenders across the city. Events and protests. We attended 25% more events and demonstrations related to Project Resolute this year than we did last year. A notable increase, and one which is occurring all across the city as well. From a parking and traffic enforcement perspective, we have seen some, albeit small, improvements in our overall collisions and fatalities. Coinciding with that, we've increased our enforcement, particularly tickets and warnings, and we continue to tow and issue parking tags extensively as well. And from a prisoner transportation perspective, we've brought nearly 37,000 prisoners to in-person hearings in courts in the city so far this year. A notable increase compared to last year, and continuing a year-over-year increase that we've been seeing for an extended period of time as well. Next slide. This is a slide which we brought to the board a number of times before, and continuing a trend that we've seen improvements on from our priority 1 response times year over year. And we continue to see general improvements in that. And you'll notice on this slide, we've indicated where those deployments occur from our new recruits, which are strategically and from a data-driven perspective deployed across the service. We're continuing to do this with each recruit class and continuing to measure and evolve from each recruit deployment. In addition to those deployments, we are emphasizing the supervisory role, the management activity, and also data capture and reporting around these events. I'll note that with those notable improvements in priority 1, other priority events are also on our high attention list. So priority 2 calls for service, for example, which also by and large involve violent activities, the average response time for those calls is about 38 minutes. And so we're going to continue to report on this. We are internally using that information on a daily basis all throughout the organization, driving improvements where we can. But it's notable that we have more work to do in this space. And although these trends are improvements year over year and this year compared to last year, there is more work to be done. As the chief noted, we have improvements this year in all of our community safety indicator categories, except for our theft over category. This is to be celebrated, but we are mindful of those longer term trends. So as we look over the past 10 years in these indicators, we are generally seeing increases over that period of time. And so where we're focusing our efforts continually on those highest risk offenders, those ones which are responsible for these crimes, we are mindful that this is longer term and substantial impacts across the city. Next slide. We have a few examples here of some of those types of crimes. So looking, for example, at our home invasions, homicides, auto thefts, those crime types which tend to have increasing complexity in the investigations. There's more information required. There's more camera footage to go through. We have more disclosure requirements and on a shorter time frame in order to be able to fulfill our requirements within the justice system. These are increasingly complex and increasingly high demand on our members, and the expectations of the service are only increasing as well. And so we're noting in this regard that, again, although we've seen improvements in 2025 compared to 2024, there is more work to do, and we have a much broader perspective as we look across these different types of crimes and the impact that they have on communities across the city. The next slide, again, showing comparable gun violence, frauds, intimate partner violence, and looking at stabbings as well. These are notable impacts to community safety, and we are mindful of these longer-term trends, the clearance rates and the investigative work which is associated with these. Important to note as we think about these are, of course, related to calls for service, but they tend to involve investigation activity that's subsequent to those calls for service. And they're the things which happen with our members who have very specialized skills, following up diligently and supporting victims across all of these types of offenses as well. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to our Director of Finance, Cindy Grant.
Thank you, Director Williams. I'd like to turn now to the big picture and a few key facts regarding our budgets for the next year. As you know, each year we develop 3 separate budgets. We have our operating budget for the service, we have the capital budget, and also the operating budget for parking enforcement. And our operating budget request is coming in at $1.4 billion. This is $93.8 million, more than 2025, which translates to a 7% increase. Now, in getting to this budget, over $40 million of reductions needed to be made to close the gap on the budget pressure, and we are very proud of the work of our budget team, led by Manager Mac DeGaysar here, in working with units, command, and our city finance counterparts to bring our budget request down. And this gap was closed through line-by-line reviews to make offsets against the pressures, deferrals of initiatives, and some staffing requests, and bridging strategies to find one-time funding for some of the pressures. But in this budget, we were able to make significant investments with the support of the board-approved hiring plan in 143 net new officers for a total of 5,714 officers by the end of next year. This will allow us to continue to build on the progress that has already been made and to help make better public safety outcomes. And of these new positions, 70 will be allocated to frontline officers and supervisors to put more officers in our communities and to continue to make needed improvements in response times. The Neighborhood Community Officer Program will be expanded by 16 positions and up to 4 new neighborhoods. And this is on top of the expansion of the NCO program that was announced recently that added 4 additional neighborhoods and also NCOs into the TTC. 17 positions will be allocated to recruitment efforts and training, and the remaining 40 positions will increase our investigative capacity, bringing more closure to victims of crime. Now, there were a few key aspects influencing the budget build this year, including our collective bargaining agreement impacts, which made up over half of the budget increase with a $50 million pressure. Legislated requirements under the CSPA, and the addition of 40 critical civilian positions to support the growth in the service and to help build capacity for transformation and modernization agendas. Our capital plan is a 10-year plan made up of 52 ongoing projects, including our life cycle replacements, and only 5 new projects over the 10-year term. The gross budget for capital in 2026 is $126.8 million, and over 10 years, the capital program grosses $1.3 billion, with $1.1 billion funded from debt. And finally, our parking enforcement budget request is $63.9 million, which pays for 394 positions and reflects a 7.6% increase over 2025. Now, earlier in the presentation, Director Williams described the workload drivers and the outcomes related to the 6 key service areas that we deliver. This slide shows a view of those same services in terms of budget dollars, the staffing numbers, and the percentage of overall budget that each service area represents. By presenting our budget this way by services, it provides a more customer-centric kind of view of how the funds are spent compared to the more traditional line-by-line budget. And you can see that our 2 largest areas of service are 911 response and patrol and investigations and victim support. And together, they account for the majority of our spending, with 76% of our budget allocated to those areas. This is consistent with last year's allocation, and the remaining 24% of our budget is allocated to the remaining 3 services. In the next slides, we will look at the more traditional view of our budget as we dive more into the numbers. But before we do, I would like to note that everything that you do see here today is described in more detail in the board reports on the budgets, and these reports contain 75 pages of information, along with information that we posted on our budget website that contains unit by unit and line by line budgets for greater budget transparency. So if you'd like to know more, there is companion information to this presentation that can help. Now, what you see here is a breakdown of our net operating budget by feature categories with year-over-year changes. As a service organization, the most significant part of our budget is staffing-related costs, including salaries, benefits, and premium pay. And together, these account for 91% of our gross budget. The remaining 9% is for day-to-day operating costs and contributions to our reserves. And you can also see from the chart that the 2 major drivers of the overall budget increase are salaries and the impact of collective bargaining agreements, along with some pressures for inflationary impacts and benefits and non-salary costs that have been offset by other reductions. And overall, the budget request is a responsible budget. It meets the 7% increase target that was provided by the city in this budget cycle to help balance citywide funding constraints. And FIFA expenditures are included in this budget, but they are fully offset by a cost recovery from the city for a net zero impact on the bottom line in this budget. And in the following slides, we will take you through the details around each of the categories that you see here in this chart. So we'll start with the salaries category, and it's, again, the most significant portion of our budget. It represents over $1 billion of the budget and an increase of $43 million over 2025. However, a major portion of this category is for pay duties, which is increasing $11 million to reflect our improved fill rate and an increased pay duty rate. This amount is fully offset through corresponding revenues, and so the true net increase is actually $32 million in this category. $20 million of that, as you may expect, is due to the cost of the multi-year hiring plan in 2026, with the hiring of 143 net new officers after considering separations. And other increases in this category are for annualization of prior year hires, reclassifications, and the addition of 40 new civilian hires that are back-ended with funding for only 1 quarter of the year. And also our civilian salaries are gapped at 4%. Overall, salaries fund a total complement of 5,714 uniform positions and 2,705 civilians. There are salary-related considerations for FIFA, but those are considered later in the presentation. The multi-year hiring plan is the cornerstone of this budget. It's designed to grow our uniform strength as the city grows, and over the 5-year plan, which was approved by the board last year, we will see a total of 502 net new officers by the end of 2029. And in 2026, we will be hiring 4 classes of 90 recruits for a total of 360 hires. It takes 6 months to hire and train our officers, so only 2 of those classes will actually deploy in 2026 in both September and December. And the other deployments in 2026 actually comes from the hires that were made this year. After considering these deployments and separations, which have been estimated at 217 separations, we would see a net increase of 143 officers. And while this plan is foundational to a more sustainable recruitment plan and budget, the challenge is that we know that there is a risk ahead in terms of separations. Many officers that were hired in the mid-1990s that followed after a hiring freeze are now eligible to retire, and with the new Medipack incentives, those numbers could potentially spike in 2027 and 2028, and that's a risk that we are trying to manage. That's why it's critical that we keep up the momentum of hiring and that we stay flexible. And we're actively monitoring these trends. If separations arise, we'll have to adjust the plan. And the bottom line is this is about staying ahead so that we can keep servicing the city effectively. So now I'll turn to the civilian side of our team. These are the professionals who keep the service running behind the scenes and on the front lines, and about 1/3 of our entire workforce is civilian. Of that group, roughly 43% work in frontline roles, such as our 911 call takers and our bookers, and another 44% provide operational support like IT and our mechanics. Only 11% are those true corporate functions such as finance, HR, and procurement. And now, as we've added officers and pushed forward with modernization, the demand on these civilian roles has grown significantly. With more officers means more cars, more video evidence, more disclosure, and more forensics. And all of that needs strong civilian support. And to address this, we've included 40 new civilian positions in the 2026 budget focused on mission-critical needs. These are back-end loaded to minimize the budget impact, with a cost of $1.5 million in 2026, which annualizes to $6 million in 2027. And while over 125 positions were requested through the budget process, we are prioritizing on 40 positions based on absolutely essential needs. Okay, so this is one of the biggest factors shaping our hiring, our training, and our supervision needs is the makeup of our workforce. And if you look at the charts, you will see a clear shift in the past few years in this makeup. Looking at the left-hand side of the slide, that chart on the uniforms, back in 2019, only about 20% of our officers had less than 10 years of experience. Today, that number has almost doubled to 37%. That middle group, officers with, say, 10 to 15 years on the job, that shows on the blue part of the graph, is really our sweet spot. They've been on the job long enough to know it inside out, and they're still close enough to the front line to lead and mentor newer officers with a long career path ahead. And the challenge is today we have fewer of these experienced officers than we had back in 2019. Really effectively 1/3 of the number that we had back in 2019. And this is the effect of uneven hiring over the years, which creates the gap that we are feeling today. On top of that, about 72% of our senior uniform officers will be eligible to retire by 2028, with even more by 2029. And we're seeing very similar trends among our civilian staff. And so what does this tell us? So this is telling us that our workforce is changing fast and that we are facing a critical transition period. And with more inexperienced members and a large portion of our members approaching retirement, we need to continue hiring and to invest in training. We need mentorship and succession planning now to manage these risks and to keep our service strong. And so that concludes the staffing portion of our presentation, and I'm now going to turn it over to Magda Gaysar, who is our Manager of Financial Planning and Analysis. Magda.
Thank you. Good evening. Before reviewing the remaining cost drivers for the 2026 budget, please note that all financial slides exclude the impact of collective bargaining agreement and FIFA. Collective bargaining agreement is treated as one line item instead of having it in each feature category to allow us to compare numbers in 2025 dollars. The financial impact of FIFA for 2025 is removed from each feature category and is consolidated under FIFA impact line. As a result, you will see variances in each figures, which is stated at the bottom of each slide. So let's move to premium pay. Premium pay funding for 2026 remains unchanged at $69.8 million, reflecting the city's commitment to affordability and the careful balance required to manage a citywide budget. Premium pay is broken down into three main categories. For uniform members, it primarily covers overtime, which is 24% or $16.5 million of total premium pay. This often happens when officers must stay past their shift. For example, if they're involved in an arrest that extends beyond their regular time. The other category is court attendance, which is 22% or $15.5 million. This is for time scheduled for court during off-duty hours. And then there is callbacks, which is 45% or $31.3 million. This is for when officers are called in for extra shifts to maintain staffing or support various initiatives. And for civilians, there is some overtime, which is about 9% or $6.5 million of total budget. And this is for essential tasks that cannot be delayed. Why premium pay matters? Premium pay is not optional. It's built into the nature of policing because of the unpredictability of work for emergency services. It also is also critical for public safety, and surge capacity during high demand periods, such as large-scale demonstration or major city events or sports events. Without premium pay, we risk gaps in coverage, slower response times, and compromised public safety. As an example of impact of a large-scale event, global demonstration under Project Resolute have significantly impacted premium pay and regular time. It started in October of 2023 when with $6 million of total cost, of which $2.5 million was premium pay. In 2024, it was $21 million total cost, with $9 million for premium pay. And in 2005, we're projecting for this to be $14 million, with $6 million for premium pay. On a funding level of premium pay, it has been historically underfunded, with an unfavorable variance of $30.6 million in 2023, $39.3 million in 2024, $18.8 projected in 2025, which, as you can see, is much lower than previous years. So what have we done to control these costs? In 2025, the service has taken proactive steps to strengthen financial performance and deliver measurable results. Some of those measures are optimizing on-duty capacity, tightening controls on overtime and callbacks, adding staff through the multi-year hiring plan, and improving scheduling and oversight. Early outcomes are encouraging, especially for special events and court-related costs. The measures I mentioned are projected to generate $14 million in savings compared to previous years, reinforcing our commitment to operational excellence and fiscal responsibilities. We have made strides in controlling premium pay, but balancing operational needs, fiscal responsibilities, and officer wellness remains an ongoing challenge. Next slides for benefits. This is an overview of 2026 budget for statutory payroll deductions and employee benefits. Overall, this category has increased by $8.2 million, or 2.7% compared to previous year. First, for medical and dental benefits, which is 23% of total benefits, we are seeing an $8.9 million increase in the board's benefit plan. This is driven by factors like drug cost, service cost, dental fee schedules, utilization rates, and administration fees. The 2026 budget reflects historical trends and anticipate continued growth. Next is payroll deductions and OMERS, which is our pension plan. In combination, they account for 57% of our total benefits, and it shows an increase of $4.8 million, based on legislated and contractual rates for employment insurance, Canada Pension Plan, employer health tax, and our pension plan, OMERS. Rate increases and higher staffing levels are contributing to this rise. WSIB costs are 9% of total benefits, and it shows $900,000 increase, which is much lower than previous years. While new claims have dropped to near pre-pandemic levels, about 90% of current cost pressures come from ongoing and complex claims, particularly related to PTSD under the Supporting Ontario's First Responders Act, which was passed in 2016. On an efficiency level, starting January 1st, 2026, changes in WSIB administration under the new collective bargaining agreement will drive significant efficiency gains, delivering about $7 million in savings through adjustments to salary-related benefits and pension contributions. Other benefits, they account for 11% of total benefits, showing $1.1 million increase, driven by items like central sick bank, group life insurance, and retiree benefits. These increases are fully offset by reserve revenues, resulting in no net impact on the overall budget. Next slide is on reserve contributions. The service contributes to several reserves through provisions in the operating budget. Reserve funding for 2026 remains unchanged from the 2025 budget at $13.7 million. This approach supports affordability and long-term sustainability. The city manages the sick pay gratuity reserve, while the service manages reserves for vehicle and equipment, legal, central sick bank, healthcare spending, and modernization. The modernization reserve is not shown on the graph because we only contribute to it from surplus funding, and it's not an annual contribution. Looking ahead, both the city and the service have committed to review all reserves together. This review will ensure that reserve balances and contributions remain adequate to support future expenditures. The next slide is on other expenditures. Besides reserves, all non-salary expenditures are in this category, which accounts for $128.3 million. As you can see on the graph, there are many non-salary components to support policing. It includes information technology requirements, ammunition, fleet, transportation costs, legal expenses, uniform outfitting, contracted services, plus many other requirements. I will only review the categories that have variances in them. The biggest component of this category is information technology, which is $41 million with an increase of $5.6 million. This amount is mostly for our hardware and software maintenance, supporting over 150 applications. The increase is due to rising contract costs, advanced technology requirements, cybersecurity, legacy system support, accounting for staffing growth, and vendor price increases outpacing inflation. Under other category, which is $25.9 million, costs are rising by $5.1 million, and the biggest change is due to legislated CSPA of $4.8 million. That's a requirement for the training and equipment to comply with the mandated regulation. And there are many other factors that make up the remaining $300,000 increase. The next slide is on revenue. Approximately 87% of the services expenditures are funded by the city property taxes. The remaining 13% is funded through other sources that I will review here. The overall revenue increased by $22.2 million, which is 11.5%. Of that, $11 million relates to paid duty salary that Director Grant referred to. That has a direct offset under salary section. And there is an additional $800,000 for paid duty administration cost. It's anticipated that paid duty revenue will reach to $50 million in 2026, making up most of the other recovery section of 67.7 shown on the graph. This increase is driven by two factors: higher paid duty rates established by Toronto Police Association and improved fill rates rising from 75% in 2022, 87% in 2024, and nearly 95% in 2025. Now, let's look at the revenue variances. Court security is at $37.8 million, as shown on the graph, under court security and prisoner transportation funding. However, our share of provincial uploads decreased by $200,000 in 2025, and we budgeted for the same amount going forward as the funding is gradually decreasing. The total provincial envelope is $125 million, which has been remaining the same, but our share has been shrinking as costs are going up and also more police services join the program. A little background information. Our recovery to eligible cost ratio has been continuously going down. For example, our eligible cost in 2024 was $60 million, while the recovery was $38, which leaves $24 million of unfunded expenditures. This unfunded amount was only half at $13 million in 2023. Our net other changes, there is recovery of CSPA of $4.8 million, additional revenue from parking enforcement's indirect cost of $1.1 million, and city's Vision Zero and congestion management, which is an additional revenue of $600,000. There are other small changes, plus a reversal of a one-time funding in 2025 of $3.9 million. This covers all key cost drivers for each categories, and I will pass it on to Mr. McCaig for the remainder.
Thank you, Magda. This slide here is showing the FIFA budget, and we have talked about it this evening, and it is a net zero impact within the 2026 budget for the service. But we did want to talk just a little bit about it to explain that a little further. First of all, this amount is in alignment with the city's overall $380 million budget. We work closely with city finance as we develop these figures and the ongoing planning. But what does it cover? It's important to remember this is planning for 39 operational days and 6 matches. TPS will maintain a 24-hour presence at BMO Field, which of course will be renamed Toronto Field for the tournament, and will also be supporting FIFA fan festivals, other approved pop-up viewing parties across our many neighborhoods, and everything that goes with such an event. Toronto is, as Toronto is have the entire world visiting our city in many ways, every game will be played and celebrated by the many diverse communities within our city. The tournament will be the largest FIFA World Cup in its history, and it will be Toronto's first time hosting an event on this scale, magnitude, and duration. It's important to remember that this isn't the only events happening during this time, as FIFA overlaps with Pride and Canada Day. Our planning team has worked very hard to manage costs and has been very diligent in balancing both safety and security investments in equipment and planning for the deployments necessary to maintain safety. It's also important to note that we do feel that we're doing this extremely well. In fact, in most U.S. cities are being encouraged to adopt our model, and FIFA itself is recommending it to other law enforcement agencies. We've delivered the most detailed and comprehensive plan and at a fraction of the cost from some other cities. And it's important, lastly, to note that planning continues. Indeed, the draw for teams to play here in Toronto was just completed a few days ago, and assessment of what the implications are is currently underway. Okay, so that was all a lot of information. And as you can tell, the budget is very detailed, supporting both fiscal due diligence as well as transparency. In a nutshell, what this chart is showing, both the table on the left and the waterfall chart on the right, is the entirety of the net budget increase equates to 7.0%, consumed by cost increases for uniform staffing. Non-salary inflation, civilian hires, and new initiatives towards modernization have all been absorbed and or self-funded through efficiencies. The 2026 budget overall, just to highlight a few points on this slide, while we talked about sort of account categories of salaries, et cetera, this is a bit of a list to summarize the drivers for the overall changes. So this budget does support the collective bargaining agreement implications, benefits, and most importantly, continuing the multi-year hiring plan. It supports FIFA, as we just talked about. It supports 40 civilian hires which is about 1.5% increase in civilian staffing versus the 125 that were actually requested across the service. There is some risk profile as we look at understanding and forecasting our benefits, inflation, and those trends, but we do feel comfortable that we have the appropriate figures in this budget. It is intended that the city can provide one-time contributions, as you can see, towards reserves and one-time costs that we will have for continuing to comply with CSPA legislation of $15.4 million. We're working closely with the city on that element. And once again, as have already been highlighted, we do have efficiencies that are covering off the self-funded investments. And lastly, we have deferred at this time right-sizing the premium pay budget, which does have a structural underfunding. So that is an overall summary of the 2026 operating budget, and I'll now turn it back to the team as we go through the 2026 capital budget request.
Back to me.
Back to you.
Okay, so we are going to review the capital program now. This is an overview of our 10-year capital program funding level, which excludes 2025 carry forwards. In 2026, 76% of the capital program is funded through debt. 12% comes from the Vehicle and Equipment Reserve, which is supported by contributions made from the service's operating budget. And 12% is funded through development charges, which are paid by developers to help cover the cost of infrastructure related to new developments in the city. For the 10-year capital program, debt will continue to be the primary funding source at 84% of the service's total capital funding requests. But the development funding is reduced to only 4%. This is most likely due to exemption and in some cases deferral of DC charges on affordable housing developments and could also relate to the housing market slowdown. For the next slide, here's a look at our key projects included in the 10-year capital program. The projects in progress are highlighted in green. 2026 upcoming projects are highlighted in yellow, and purple are for projects that start from 2027 to 2035. Over the next 10 years, our capital program amounts to $1.3 billion gross, with the majority, about 74%, attributed to projects that are already in progress. This allocation shows that TPS is prioritizing the completion of existing commitments rather than starting a large number of new projects at the same time and not having the ability to finish them and have low spending rates. Following the strategy that we have, in recent years, our spending rate has consistently been high. In 2023, it was 75%, in 2024, 90%, and in 2025 is expected to be 81%. Our 10-year capital program has strategically is divided into 5 key categories of investments. Facility projects are a significant focus, accounting 43% of our budget. The service will be developing a long-term facility plan aimed at enhancing operational flexibility, addressing aging infrastructure, and optimizing resource use. All 5 upcoming projects fall in this category. Some key projects in this category are 41 Division, initiated in 2018 and is scheduled for completion in 2027. This building is being structured at its existing location through a phased approach. It will be the service's first net zero emission building. 54 Division will be constructed at its existing site as well, using a phased approach with completion expected in 2029. Headquarters modernization, Phase 1, will run from 2026 to 2028, addressing significant space constraints that impact operational efficiencies and staffing well-being. This project will modernize and reconfigure workspaces to support the service's growth. Mounted unit and police dog services building remediation will begin in 2026 and finish in 2028, reconfiguring facilities to enhance the wellness and comfort of services, horses, and dogs. 13 Division and 55 Division are planned as new builds starting in 2028 and anticipated completion in 2032. 28% of the program is allocated to equipment-related expenditures, such as furniture, servers, body-worn camera, mobile phones for connected officers, and AFIS system. Most of these items fall under life cycle replacement, ensuring our assets remain up-to-date and fully functional. Technology is 11% of budget, with the service experiencing an increased pace of investment in information technology and information management. These investments build on foundational work such as implementation of a new records management system and digital program. These initiatives are designed to deliver operational benefits and move the service into a more digital environment. 13% of the budget is dedicated to vehicle investments. The service currently maintains a fleet of 1,975 vehicles, including marked, unmarked, special purpose vehicles, and boats, and 426 bicycles. These assets support both the service and parking enforcement operations, and funding in this program also includes new vehicles to accommodate the multi-year hiring plan. Finally, 4% of the program is assigned to communications. This involves the life cycle replacement of our 5,100 radios. In conclusion, this capital program reflects our commitment to maintaining operational excellence, investing in modern infrastructure and technology, as well as supporting long-term sustainability. The next slide is on parking enforcement. Please note that parking is a separate budget from the service. It's part of the city's overall parking tag enforcement operations budget. It also should be noted that the revenue allocated from the parking tickets will go directly to the city. The parking enforcement unit plays an important role in keeping traffic moving safely and smoothly in our city. They do this by responding to parking concerns and enforcing municipal bylaws. They also provide operational support to the service, such as supporting special events. Parking enforcement budget is going up by $4.5 million or 7.6%. Combination of salaries and benefit requirements have increased by $1.8 million, primarily due to a step progression, statutory benefit rates, and inflationary impacts for contractual group benefits. There has been no increase in the staffing level. The average deployed strength for 2026 remains at 357 parking enforcement officers and a total staffing complement of 394. There will be a class of parking enforcement officers in 2026 to backfill vacancies. There is $300,000 increase in reserves to support the replacement of parking vehicles and ongoing modernization efforts aimed at improving operational efficiencies through technology, including the replacement of vehicle impound program and the use of automated license plate recognition technology. Other expenditures increased by $1.1 million, and this is mostly due to services charged back to parking to provide corporate and information technology services for upcoming modernization efforts. Revenues are going up by $100,000 as it relates to increasing towing recoveries of $300,000 and a loss of funding from city's traffic direction program of $200,000. Those funds are redirected to the services traffic services unit. Collective bargaining agreement impact is $1.5 million. Just a little bit more on the two initiatives. For modernization initiatives, parking enforcement is currently in the early stage of testing new technologies for automated license plate recognition, or ALPR, to deploy cameras and softwares to read plates, locate vehicles, and identify violations. And the vehicle impound program is to improve tow management and information sharing. Parking enforcement officers are projected to issue 2 million parking tags in 2025 and 2026, which is down from 2.1 million in 2024. The number of tags are lower due to higher fine amounts, which has increased by 53.5%, leading to higher compliance. And that concludes our budget presentation. I'll turn it back to Mr. McCaig for final
Okay.
remarks.
Did you want to wrap it up?
Just another thank you to the team, and again, an incredible amount of effort and detail goes behind all of these slides, notwithstanding that this was a lot of detail to share with this group, but we're happy to turn it back to you, Chair, for the rest of the meeting.
Okay. If you're going to turn it back to me, I may need a drink of water. Okay. So for members, we're going to hear from the deputants, and then we'll go to questions. I've been making some notes. We probably will have questions, but we're going to turn first to our list of speakers. I think is that the whole list, or did I have one left over here? No, I got it. Okay. Pay close attention to the written. Those are just my written ones. There's the one. That's the ones I'm looking for. Thank you. We do have written deputations that have already been provided to you. Those are in convene for you to have a look at. And then I'll go to the deputants who are with us tonight, both virtually and in person. And the first one is a virtual presentation, which is Beau Duquesne. Oh, he's not logged on. Okay. We have one. I don't know if I have this name right. We may be reversed. Engineer Hassan is to be here in person. I don't see him. Is there any chance he is virtual? No. Okay. The next virtual presentation is Louis Har. He's logged in?
Yes, hi, can everyone?
Mr. Har, yes, we can hear you. Now we can see you. Excellent. Okay. So you'll have 5 minutes to speak to the budget presentations.
Great, fantastic. So good evening, Chair Carroll and members of the Budget Committee. My name is Louis Har, and I'm the Policy and Government Relations Advisor at the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, or CIJA. So CIJA represents Jewish federations across Canada and the interests of more than 150,000 Jewish Canadians affiliated with their local communities. Thank you for allowing me to speak today, to share a perspective, and to offer recommendations for the upcoming budget in the interest of public safety, community protection, and maintaining Toronto as a safe and inclusive city for all. So over the past 2 years, the Jewish community in Toronto has faced an elevated threat level. Anti-Semitism today is no longer isolated. It is persistent, visible, and increasingly organized. It shows up not only as vandalism or online rhetoric, but as harassment, intimidation, and in some cases, violence. The Toronto Police Service's own data reflects this as well. In 2024, there were 443 reported hate crimes. a substantial increase over prior years. Of those incidents, 177 targeted the Jewish community, accounting for 40% of all hate crimes in the city. More than half involved vandalism or graffiti, and anti-Jewish mischief alone represented 1/3 of all reported hate crimes. Assault-related offenses also rose sharply. There is a human cost behind these figures. We see this in targeted demonstrations routed throughout Jewish residential areas, particularly in the Bathurst and Shepherd area. For residents, this isn't an abstract idea of civil debate. It's intimidation outside their homes where they should feel the safest. We also see it in persistent vandalism. Just this past weekend, mezuzahs were torn from the doorways of Jewish seniors in a city-run housing building in North York. A mezuzah is not just an object, it is a symbol of faith, identity, and protection, and tearing it down is an intimate act of violence meant to make people feel unsafe in their own homes. Furthermore, the Kehilat Sharei Torah synagogue in North York has now been attacked 10 times in the last 2 years. 10 times. Whether in their homes or their places of worship, Jewish Torontonians should be able to feel safe and free from intimidation and harassment. And we have also seen escalation into violence. At an off-campus Toronto Metropolitan University event, Jewish students and speakers were attacked by masked individuals using a weaponized drill bit. We commend the quick police intervention, including arrests, but this incident illustrates how quickly hateful rhetoric can turn to destruction and violence. At the same time, there has been considerable progress. The expansion of the Hate Crimes Unit, centralized investigations, and training on Judaism and anti-Semitism are meaningful improvements. The scope of incidents continues to place pressure on frontline capacity. The 2026 budget must ensure that progress is not only sustained but strengthened. Safe access zones are one example. Establishing these zones around vulnerable institutions who request them was essential. Their effectiveness depends on training, clear procedures, and sufficient deployment so enforcement is consistent and proactive. Frontline presence is also crucial. Areas with high concentration of community institutions experience a disproportionate share of incidents. In these neighborhoods, visible policing and ongoing community engagement directly affect confidence and response. Intelligence and training remain critical as well. The Hate Crimes Unit requires stable funding to support centralized investigations and protest-related files. Intelligence capacity allows risks to be identified earlier before harm occurs. Training must also keep pace with how anti-Semitism appears now, through coded language, online coordination, and sustained harassment, long before it becomes physical. Finally, protest management requires operational clarity. Peaceful expression is fundamental, but when conduct becomes intimidation, threats, or violence, the response must be timely and consistent. The budget also plays a role in ensuring officers are supported to act when laws are breached. The decisions before you will shape both safety outcomes and public confidence. Sustained investment now reduces risks later for officers, institutions, and neighborhoods that have already shouldered the impact of prolonged targeting. CJA remains committed to constructive partnership with the service and with the board. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Har. You were exactly on time. And members, there's also from CJA the written deputation from Josh Landau. So it gives you the written version almost perfectly aligned with the deputation. Excellent. Albert Benzel? Yes, I'm here. Yep. Good evening, Albert. You have 5 minutes to speak on the budget.
I don't see the red light on. Is it on?
Oh, it's on, yeah.
Okay. All right, moving at lightning speed, as fast as you can go, how soon can we take away $50 million from the police budget and give it to the remote viewing program? By the end of today? Unfortunately, your staff are the iconic exemplar of gross negligence and mass overwhelming incompetence. A remote viewing program actually saves you money. Instead of paying out all of this overtime, you could have arrested MacArthur in 2013 when I dutifully reported he is a serial killer. Kinsman would still be alive today, as well as Anna D'Amico and Reese Fallon. Tell me again about how TPS is here to save lives. How is TPS going to restore trust by tarnishing the name of civilians, betraying humanity, and orchestrating a cover-up? In less than 45 minutes, I solved the MacArthur case. The 2013 France warnings.
Mr. Venzel, I have let you know at the beginning, tonight we're talking to the budget.
Yes,
and so we need to speak to the budget.
Right. And trying to take money from the budget and give it to remote viewing.
Well, if we're going to get into historical items, there is a complaint mechanism if you wish to make a complaint
and
about
you sent me
past-
back a form letter from the
Yeah.
complaint. If you just let me finish my 5 minutes and
Yep.
I can go. In less than 45 minutes, I solved the MacArthur case. The 2013 France warnings includes the 3 events in France, Pulse nightclub, and the Toronto-centric incel Danforth MacArthur, with name, date, and place, victim names included. Why did your overpaid staff tell me it is not their catchment area to do anything about it?
Mr. Venzel, I'm sorry, but that does not speak to the budget we have for 2026. And I'm sure you can appreciate my challenge tonight is that I have been very strict about some other members of the public not deputing here for not being on the item. I need you to speak to the proposals for 2026. We cannot go back in time. The item is on the future,
Ma'am,
2026.
71 Winchester Street, you collect property tax from. And then if you would let me finish, your staff says 71 Winchester Street is not their catchment area. 5100 Yonge Street, not their catchment area. Danforth and Logan, not their catchment area. What are we giving you over $1 billion for and then endure constant harassment for fat raises? The majority of your budget goes to staff salary. This is about the budget. Did you see the recommendation in the Epstein report to take remote viewing predictions seriously? What page was that on? Who is Epstein to betray humanity and tarnish the name of civilians? Why has Sandler not been recalled yet to explain himself? Sandler has a true copy of the France warnings your staff were frantically trying to destroy. Further, Sandler records a new
Mr. Venzel, tonight is about the budget, not about individual
Yes, and you paid
members of
$5
staff,
million from the
police,
budget to
uniform.
the
We're not
review
speaking to
who lied.
individuals tonight. I'm
You
sorry.
owe me restitution.
Mr. Venzel, I'm going to have to ask you to speak to the budget for 2026 without identifying individuals, or I'm going to have to ask you to end your deputation.
Did $5 million go to the review from the budget? Yes, it did.
Mr. Venzel, we're talking about 2026.
Okay. Why are they putting leaders in counterterrorism after their name? I have reported terrorism many times, not once, many, many times. They always squander the good information, then falsify their reports, and double down on the cover-up while patting themselves on the back. What justification is the board giving that they have done nothing to take and act on new predictions, to hold the past negligence accountable, to place zero-point energy into the public domain? That budget chair, that's you,
Yes, that is.
should be made aware that these self-declared titles are just another way for them to grift from the city. The Chiefs Command Center refused
Mr.
to interview
Venzel,
my 9/11
I'm going to have
witnesses.
to ask for your microphone be turned off. We're talking about 2026. We're not making accusations.
Right. And I have witnesses alive.
2026, please.
An obvious falsified event.
Your time is up. Thank you. Your microphone has been turned off. Please, Mr. Venzel, I need you to move away from the area. No, I'm sorry, you are finished.
Zero-point energy will break, and then I will have a hot mic, and the whole world will be listening to what I have to say. And I'm going
Good night,
to
Mr.
deny
Venzel.
the civilian's name and
Good night, Mr. Vinzel. Thank you. Our next deputant is a,
What I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
our next deputant is virtual, and it is our friend Miguel Avila. Is he logged on? Yeah. Excellent.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry
gonna
for
do-
not being there in person. I apologize for not being there in person. This is my 15th year speaking to the budget of the Toronto Police Services and the board. So I would like to share. So here in your screen, I hope you can see it, is a copy of the Community Police Liaison crime statistics for this 2025. The understanding that we members of the community receive from the neighborhood community officers.
It's a bit
in Region
faint for
5.
us. Miguel, I just want to, it's a bit faint for us to see it on the screen here, but if you want to provide it, email it in or something, we'll have a look at it.
So, okay.
Or if you can,
So-
or if you can enlarge it somehow.
Oh, you want me to enlarge it? Okay, hold on a second, please. My God, I'm having. Can you see it?
Oh, there you go. Now we can see it.
Okay, great. I'm getting better to this, but thanks for the input. So we were told at the Region Park Safety Network that crime statistics has gone down 4.5%. And that is good news. But at the same time, there is a lot of questions, mainly from the community that wonder perhaps they're not reporting crimes because the expectation is nothing will happen. Sometimes they're a bit discouraged in reporting crime in the community. The other thing that we think as a members of the community, perhaps the decrease in crime will enable the board or the service to perhaps put a reduction on the number of hires for the coming year. I'd like to explain to you why. Toronto, Ontario, Canada is going through a difficult time, and we know it. A lot of people are losing their jobs. And Bill 60 was passed not long ago. Bill.
Oh, I'm sorry, we lost him. I don't have control of the clock. Can we stop the clock while we're seeing if we can reconnect? I don't know if we're going to be able to get him back. So that's it. If we're not able to reconnect, I think what I'm going to do is go to questions then of the presentation. And if Miguel should reestablish, we'll go back and give him a couple more minutes to speak. Yeah. So we can, if we do get a hold of him. But I don't want to hold any of the members up either from asking their questions. So why don't we proceed with that? I'll confess to being terrible about being able to see when virtual members have questions, but I'm going to try real hard to pay attention tonight. So let's go to questions of the presenters. Vice Chair Brillinger, you had some questions. Lisa, do you have some questions? Okay. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And you know it's going to be about court services. So am I correct in understanding that there are two components, one being prisoner transport and the other?
Oh, before we
Miguel's
get
back.
deeply into it, Miguel's reestablished connection. You guys can go ahead and get comfortable because we'll be there soon. Miguel, we did stop the clock for you when your connection went down, so we know that you have a couple minutes left. Let's say 2.5. You go ahead. Can you hear us? I don't think Miguel can hear us yet. Yeah. Miguel, I don't know if you can hear us. I think you need to unmute. Oh, he can't hear us either. Yeah. Is your volume turned down by any chance so that you can't hear us? Yeah. Yeah, I think, Miguel, your speaker's off. We can see you, but we can't hear you. I think you're muted and your own speaker's off. No, it's not going to work. Okay. Over to you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. So, am I correct in understanding that service area contains two functions, one being prisoner transfer, the other being court security? Is that roughly the way that budget breaks?
Yes, that's correct.
And we, as a service and a board, are responsible for prisoner transport. And we provide court security on behalf of the court system.
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
And the understanding was that the court system would pay for that court security service.
Correct. Again.
And in 2023, they were underpaying by 13 million. And in 2026, that will rise to 24 million. Did I hear those numbers correctly?
No, but what will it be in 2026? It's almost 2 years behind. Yeah, at this point, we don't know because they're behind in terms of the allocation. So we're just estimating that it will be a little less.
Okay, so was it 24 million under in 2025?
In 2024, it's 2 years behind in terms of the allocation.
So, well, that's even more interesting. Okay.
Hang on one sec. That's
So
not correct.
2023,
Interesting's one word.
it was underfunded by 13 million. 2024,
Pretty much the same. Yeah.
that
20.
jumped to 24 million. 25, we don't know because they haven't told us yet what we're getting.
No, that's, yeah, you go ahead.
And 26, we wouldn't
I think
know
it's
yet.
another $200,000 underfunded from the 2024 amount. So 2024 was 24 million. It's 24,200,000 underfunded.
Yeah, just as a note, we don't have the eligible expenses for 2025 yet. So we don't know with certainty how much it will be, but the anticipation, as Director Grant said, is it will be about $37.8 million. And we budgeted the same amount for 2026, which means that we continuously are going to be underfunded, even though we are getting our collective bargaining agreement increases, but those amounts, we don't know if it's going to be eligible or not.
And if I'm understanding correctly, when we look at the 2023 number, not only are we underfunded, it's growing. over time, the amount by which we're underfunded. It would be helpful to have some of those numbers ahead of the board meeting. I think I may have a motion for board, so I can follow up.
Yeah, certainly we can provide those. Yeah, we have back to 2022 in our notes here. At one time, we were getting $43 million, and that's now down to $37.8 million. In terms of cost recovery, our relative share of the provincial amount of $125 million has been going down every single year.
Understand. I get the dynamics of what's happening with the provincial pot. I would like to be able to show the number over time that the download of that cost is increasing. So I'll work with you to get those numbers, and may have a motion when budget's at board.
Okay, thank you.
That's
I'll
great.
provide
Thank
that.
you.
So that's your only question? It's a big
That's
one.
it. Thank you, Chair.
It's a big one. Member Kostakis.
So mine is just more generic. If, while doing the budget, apart from we saw trends and any flags, red flags that may have come up that might impact the service as well. I know we talked about the retirement possibilities and moving forward, but was there anything that you may have flagged that we need to keep an eye on in the budget? I mean, the budget is live, that might impact the service.
Thank you for the question. I'll start, and the team can round out anything that I may not pick up on. So the couple of items, we have taken some more forecast effort, if I put it that way, on some of our benefit costs and those kind of rising expenses, and we're, move closer. Sure. There we go. So very good. So we took another look at the forecasting for our benefit costs. Those continue to rise, and it's not in line with inflation typically, whether it's utilization growing up or things like dental fee guides grow a lot faster than the rate of inflation, unfortunately. So we took a look at those expenses, and we did take a little bit of risk on that line item in terms of what we've put into this budget. It's a little hard to judge. We didn't want to overinflate the budget and the pressure that put on ourselves in the city. There could be a little bit of risk on that item. It's just such a large bucket of expenditure for the service that if we're off by a little bit, there may be some risk in that line item. We're comfortable with the budget, but you've asked the question where there might be some risk, and that could be an area where we might see a little bit of pressure through 2026. Premium pay, of course, we've talked about. I think that's a well understood issue and where that sits. And the other item that I would just sort of remind would be the one-time funding that we are working with the city and the city finance team around contributions. About $10.5 million of that is for reserves, and 4.8 of that is to complete the work on CSPA requirements, which is about half training and about half equipment. So those are one-time items that we've been working with the city well. So if those things all come to pass, then that won't be a risk as well. Those are, I think, the three main items that I might highlight, other than, of course, the whole hiring and attrition risk that we face as a service, which is really the most significant thing that we would call out. Like the multi-year hiring plan and the attrition, that whole sort of bundle of risk, that is the most single largest risk, I think, facing, certainly from a fiscal standpoint, but also operationally. Team, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I'm not sure if you mentioned WSIB.
I did not.
Okay.
So some of the savings that we see and some of the cost pressures we see are WSIB kind of comes into play on both sides. We're pleased actually that the growth in cases, there's still new cases coming forward in WSIB, but the rate of those cases is decreasing. So there's some good news there. And I guess continuing to talk about good news, we do see opportunity around how we administer WSIB for our members, and it relates to some tax advantages and some pension advantages that we will move into how we administer, which should drive some fairly significant savings for ourselves, and that is really what's self-funding most of the new initiatives. So, yep.
Is that it? Okay. Member Morgan, did you have questions?
Sorry, no, thank you, not at this time, thank you.
Okay. I have a few, and some of them are really just to illustrate. So I may ask them again come board day, but just for the purposes of discussion tonight, we heard a deputy got interrupted, but Mr. Avila was talking about if crime's going down, maybe we don't need to continue with the hiring plan. We've also heard that in writing. We heard it a little bit in the media. So there are two things in your presentation that I think we should touch on. The first one, I'm using the pagination that's on the presentation. So on the slide it says slide 10, slide number 10. I don't know what page it is in the agenda, but I think this is little understood. Yes, we're doing the 4 classes of 90 every year, but we're handling also where a lot of that is going towards replacing after retirements. But we're really, people have criticized us for being too focused on cop to pop, but we're not improving on that ratio over time. We're just running to stay in place. If you look at the ratio that we end up in, if we go all the way to the end of the hiring plan, even if we did use that ratio, we're not actually improving on it. We're just trying to stay in place. And I think that gets lost, that little row of numbers along the bottom. Am I right about that? Is that still the case?
Sure. Yes, Chair, you're absolutely correct. The multi-year hiring plan was tagged to a cop to pop as a methodology, but really, again, trying to ensure that the service was at least in some measure growing to keep pace with the needs of Toronto and the operational requirements. We're really pleased with some of the results, but I think some of the messaging that we tried to convey, when you look at some of the long-term crime trends, there is still a lot more work to do. We're really happy with the short term, but there is much more to be done.
Yeah, I do really want to make sure we highlight that. We celebrate year-over-year success with the recent investment coming out of years of austerity, but over a 10-year window, we do have a lot more work to do. That can't be lost in this conversation. And while we are ending the year feeling good about something that I talk about with great trepidation, about the interpretation of some of our crime data. But when you look at the 10-year window, we are really coming off some very, very significant highs. So we have a long way to go to get us to where Torontonians expect us to be, which is why we've recently deployed into the transit system, for example, because the sense of safety is not reflected in how people feel about safety and security. So that's one issue. I do really want to talk just for a moment, Chair. The other, if we go back to 2 years ago in the development of the multi-year hiring plan, we talked about a 24-minute response time to priority 1, and that's only a couple years ago. And we're at 13.5678, which I would submit the Inspector General doing some work on defining what a standard should be for jurisdictions is work that has to unfold. But what we can say, and I'll say as the Chief with great confidence, 13.6 minutes is not the standard. I expect as a Torontonian, and I think 3.2 million Torontonians would agree. So we have work to do there still, regardless of the positive work we're doing. We have more work to do. And let's not forget what we talked about a couple years ago. Onboarding police officers takes a long time. We can see our demographics becoming more and more junior in the more and more unpredictable frontline work. That requires supervision, and we presently continue to struggle in having adequate supervision to support our most at-risk operations. And so every supervisor promoted is a police officer out of a police car. So the net new number, while we truly celebrate it, it has an impact when we promote to provide the support our members need. So the net gain is actually not what the numbers always make us feel when it comes to people in police cars. So we got to be mindful of that, and that's why we continue to say the multi-year hiring plan is something we really appreciate the ongoing investment, because this will take some time to get us to the right size. For cop to pop is a metric, but for workload, pressures, clearance rates, level of occurrences, expectations of police officers, and Torontonians' expectations, growth continues to be something required of us.
Right, right. And the other thing is, this came up when we got to slide 12. When we put out this budget, the media tends to look at, okay, where are their arrows going up, where are they going down, and they're more or less they're looking at major crime indicators. So they're looking at response times and they look at the first two columns really on this sheet. So I'm wondering if the answer isn't that yes, it's wonderful if they go down, but they go down because of what we're doing on the prevention side, which people think of crime prevention as, oh, I went and talked to the school kids and that's about it. They're not understanding what focus is, they're not understanding what NCOs do. So I'm wondering if over time we have to sort of shift our communications focus so that, we're not just looking at major crime indicators. There were this many activations, this many referrals, and sort of work towards a place where that starts to matter in the community as well, because they understand that's why the stats are what they are, because we got there before. Because that we're still sort of focused on the MCI metrics, and these are actually better. 1,100 referrals from Focus and Gang Exit Program and NCO program means 1,100 crimes that aren't showing up in the stats.
And Madam Chair, when you look at the duties of a police officer under the CSPA, crime prevention is a core duty of every police officer. So it's not only an important stat, it's a legislated obligation placed on our police officers. So I could not agree with you more that we need to highlight that work more.
And then I had a member of the media ask me about this one, and I know we explained it. On the successful steps towards a safer Toronto, slide 14, we show our improvements in some of those indicators. We flesh out from just basic major crime indicators and show a little more breakdown here. The little tiny bar graph underneath, needle graph, what time frame is that? Because we're just, the percentage we show is just a 1-year set of progress. But what's the time frame of the little tiny graph underneath?
That's a 6-year period. So you get 2 dots essentially for each year to represent that trend.
Oh, okay. So it goes back how many years then?
6 years.
Pardon?
6 years.
Oh, 6. Okay, thank you. Yes, my daughter told me just yesterday, Mom, when are you going to get your hearing tested? 6. Okay, I got it. Okay, I think in this slide we've got to start putting that in because I keep getting asked, just sort of like being buttonholed in the hall by a reporter. What does that thing mean? So it's sticking in their mind that they don't know what it means. So I don't know how we put that on the slide because I like that it's visually so lean.
We can certainly do that, and
one.
in the following slides you see we break it out over a 10-year period, which is a much more effective way to show that. And we also include some of the clearance rates, which are a very important part of the metrics that we can include. To your point, using beyond COP to POP, the perspective that we have is much more complex than one single indicator, which is why, as the chief mentioned, we use many indicators to help describe and to measure our work over the many areas that it delivers around.
Right, okay. Now, further into the numbers, on slide 18, in the overview, right off the bat, you talked about 40 million in efficiencies, and some of that we know about. It's, continuing to do that reduced reserve contributions. Some of them are dig in. Part of it you mentioned was deferral of some initiatives. How do you decide what gets deferred? I'm assuming that if it's a board priority and something we're really live to and receiving reports on, that's not going to be the first thing deferred. But how do you decide? Well, from the smiles, see, you decide and everyone else is unhappy about it. That's the short answer.
Well, we'd like to be able to say yes more often, Chair, but when we do have to make those tough decisions, we'll do that typically collaboratively, internally with command, et cetera. The 125 civilian request is a great example. They come through a process. They're identified by area, by unit, what the request is for, why the need is there. We do ask the units to self-declare if it's sort of a high mission-critical need or if it's sort of
So
medium or low.
there is some risk analysis before you decide.
Correct. And when that comes in, then we take a look and sit down as a group within command and try to make the decisions as best we can within the resources we have available. And a lot of times that'll be a request for, now I'm going by memory, but something, say, in the neighborhood of 16 civilians to help with a video review of all the volumes of evidence that now come into the service, and we were able to accommodate 8 within the request. So you know that they're having challenges to keep up, and we're not able to provide all that they're looking for, but we will go through each and assess the best that we can, and there's trade-off decisions that we make within those discussions as well.
Okay, so beyond even, we could help if we have not just a strat plan that we expect to have early next year. If we have a strat plan that aligns with the chief's work plan and vision, if we also have a sort of enterprise risk analysis of our own, if we've got an enterprise risk system going and you've got an enterprise risk system going, then we can probably be better collaborating in the draft phase of the budget. Okay, that's the goal. More on this later. And then I have one other thing, because this is another common question. This always get asked in the council chamber. There's a slide that I like, breakdown of service areas, except that I think I think this is blended. Because it gets to if you move across this slide, traffic and parking enforcement. What we see there is an allocation of net budget of 69.5 million. Is that what is being used on that in the service, or is that a blended number of what's happening in parking enforcement plus what's happening in the service with respect to traffic and parking enforcement?
So I'll start. What the way this kind of works in an area where we do have the very specific costs, those are captured there. So parking enforcement, we know those. We know the 324 uniform staff that are there, for example, and that's built and put into that budget. The rest of it, there is an allocation for the remainder of services, like internal services, if I can put it that way, like IT or HR or what have you. So there's an allocation mechanism that would spread those costs across all the service areas to come out with the overall view on that particular service area or service line.
So I have two reasons to be focused on that area. One is because of the council always scratch their heads over it because they always think they're going to remember the separate parking budget, and then they don't. There's always someone who needs to have that explained. But I'm also wondering if we need to start keeping track of, in that whole area of traffic enforcement, what are the rising costs due to losing our ASE capabilities? What's the shifting expense there? Are we losing the ability to prioritize the things we want to prioritize? Because we're essentially going back in time and we're going to have to fortify. Well, we had human officers doing speed enforcement throughout and the kind of traffic enforcement. We now also have the city adding wardens to the mix, but we're now taking away a major helper in the way of the cameras. So I'm wondering if we need to separate this out and highlight it somehow, so have some data analysis of how do we keep the roads safe, so that if it's beginning to sap from other areas, we're tracking it.
So Chair, I'm sure you're familiar with the financial system transformation project at the city.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we were hoping to get from that project, and I believe it's going to be in a phase 2, is the management reporting that would allow us to get extremely granular with which costs are landing in which product lines or service lines. And that would give us exactly the kinds of tools that you're talking about to be able to discern crisply. So as an example, there are divisional resources that are doing traffic enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So from a costing perspective, they belong in the product line of traffic and parking. But they're very hard to separate out from the PRU or divisional costs.
Right.
So, and if we're looking at the impacts of things like the provincial changes, those would be easier to see once we have that established. I think we may be a year away from having that capability, and doing it manually in finance is extremely difficult, so we can only get really high level granularity with that information.
Okay. Did you have a follow-up on that?
I just wanted to add is, one of the things as we build capacity through the multi-year hiring plan that we've been able to do is fundamentally get back to some basics where we had officers very much focused on priority calls for many, many years and little else because there was no other capacity. As we reconstitute our capacity, we are building the ability for our members to do more traffic enforcement at the divisional level. And my expectation is that every police officer wearing a uniform will play a role in traffic safety, not just to augment changes provincially, but quite frankly, it's just good police work. And as we have the commitment of multi-year hiring, we are looking to build that capacity back. It's a core function. We need to be doing it. How we measure and how we tell the story in the product lines is something we'll work on to be richer in that hopefully next year.
And if you're telling me those systems are going to talk to each other, that's amazing. Mr. Brillinger will remember when that promise was made to us with FPARs, but we understand this new thing actually is going to do it.
Hope so.
That was just a blast from the past of a large expenditure that got us nowhere. Okay. One last question, and it's on capital, and that is, I see we've got some divisions that we know we need to be working on. They're bursting at the seams at 55 and at 13, but I see it right down at the bottom here. This is a high-level view for the purposes of presentation. But if I dig into the agenda, will I find a project right across the 10 years so that we can look at that on when we do the final adoption of the budget, or is that something maybe you want to report back on post-budget so that we can work on it through the year? Yeah.
Yeah, we certainly have the information. I'm just checking with the team.
The full schedule that will look like this, actually, that one is included in the board report and also on the material that we posted on our website.
Okay, so I'll have a look at that.
I can just hand this to you.
Okay. I'll have a look at that. Not that you'll be able to change it just because I looked at it. We may still want to do a prioritization report a little later in the year. Okay. I think we really should, because those are challenges. Some of the ones we're facing more upfront make perfect sense. I just really worry that the two places where we're pushing back those divisions are really growth areas. They're really going to have enhanced population, need enhanced coverage, and where are we going to put those people? Yeah.
And I think, Chair, if I could add, there is opportunities evolving when you look at the city's plan around densification and transit development that will provide us unique opportunities for some facilities considerations.
Okay. Those are my questions. Oh, members, if you wouldn't mind, I was just going to ask for wrap-up comments, but Mr. Avila was able to get back on track. Do we have him on there? So if we just want to give a couple more minutes, we can allow Miguel to finish his presentation. Miguel, I'm glad you persevered and got back on. You have to unmute. We can't hear you yet. There you are.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to continue and putting the final comments to my deputation. I hope you can see my screen.
We can.
All right. So in regards to the MCI unit that is considered to be transitioned to the Crisis Response Center of the City of Toronto, I think it is acceptable. I support it. As long as we continue getting proper mental health support for people that live in the streets of Toronto. With regards to collective agreement pressures and responsibilities, I totally understand that. It's mandatory in every budget to include the collective agreements. With regards that, I have no problem. But I just want to be ask you to be a little bit modest on your hiring for the next year. 4 times, I think you're planning to hire more officers. I'm not saying no, but perhaps you can be a little modest in view that Canada is facing a great changes in labor, and people are losing their jobs. Many Torontonians are going to be evicted from the units because of Bill 60. And also, you officers will be required to attend schools. So why don't we wait also for the federal government to tell the City of Toronto that will cover the cost of housing the refugees? That is the responsibility. If you are proactive in being modest and concerned about the current state of affairs, I think your budget will pass at City Council. I'm just asking for modesty. In view of the current situation that our country is going through, our city, I thank Mayor Chow for doing great work out there to support housing, increase transportation in the City of Toronto. Policing is part of also our community needs. You're part of our society. It's good to see more neighborhood community officers being allocated to other neighborhoods in the City of Toronto. That's great news. But again, please keep that communications strong with the community, and we will see good outcomes in the future. Thank you so much, Chair, for allowing me to speak. This concludes my 5 minutes, and I appreciate that very much.
No problem. Thank you for, I'm so glad you were able to connect back up again. Thanks, Miguel. Okay. So, members, I don't know if you want to make comments tonight. Obviously, this is going to the board, but if you want, you can make comments tonight if there are things that you might want more information on come board consideration day. Member Kostakis is saving her comments for board day. Vice Chair? Okay. Then that leaves me, I want to make a quick comment, and then I do want to move the motion that we have before us for our recommendation. First of all, I want to thank the deputants who did come and speak tonight, because I think it's better for us to hear a couple of days before. By hearing the deputations tonight, it means we have a little time for second sober thought. And I'm hoping that we can get to the point where this is sort of really instituted as a tradition, because if we hear those comments before we're getting to the board in the future, then we've got time to decide what we want to look into. I also want to thank staff, because it's not understood by people, because we've made individualized targets across the board at the city. People are surprised to see this, and surprised to see us saying we're at 7% increase, meaning we're at target. And there's been some comment about that. But that is the target that was set. And we were able to keep to the goals that we have. We know we need them for adequate and effective policing to happen. What we're proposing in terms of the hiring plan is an absolute necessity. And having a collective bargaining agreement under Canadian law is a necessity in this particular organization. And so we have a target that pretty much does that and nothing else. And so to be able to come to target, I know did take a certain amount of collaborating and prioritizing and choosing what had to be deferred. And I know that is difficult. It is happening all across the province in boards. We heard about it, Member Kostakis and I, anytime the OAPSB gets together, they also have time to compare notes on other things. And everyone is feeling some of the pressures because they're all facing new needs that they never had before and yet being pressured by it. So that you were able to meet those pressures, and we're in a place where we're at the target that the city was hoping for, that those things were able to align is a minor miracle. Thank you for presenting tonight. I've encouraged board members who couldn't attend tonight that they can watch it on YouTube beforehand, so that we can by the time this is coming to the board, we won't necessarily sit through word for word all we heard tonight. We're hoping folks have time to review it and do their thinking on it. And that being said, I think with that target, the motion that I want to move is that we do recommend to the board to adopt the motion that we heard tonight as drafted. Do you have that motion as technically worded? Thank you, Diana. And that is that the Budget Committee recommend that the board approve the 2026 budget request for the Toronto Police Service and the Toronto Police Service Board. While we didn't dig into the board budget, it is going to be the same budget as last year. And so we'll move that. Member Kostakis, did you want to second that? Okay. And Vice Chair is still there. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending.